All right, let me share my screen here. All right. So, can everybody see the screen? All right. So, as you see here, Cherokee, 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 Cherokee. This is the last name Williams. So, all the Negroes that have the last name Williams must be connected to who?
Cherokee.
Exactly. Cherokee, 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 Cherokee. And they all by blood, not married into. Cherokee, 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 Cherokee. Keep going, keep going. God damn, keep going. There's 21 pages of this. 21 pages. Look at that. Keep going, keep going. And we're going to keep going until the last page. Is this phenomenal way that you just found out that the last name Williams is Cherokee? Most people don't know that. Because, as Brother L said, Europeanized. Here go the Chickasaw now. Remember, I just told y'all that. Williams is also Chickasaw. So we got Cherokee, now we got Chickasaw. Williams, Williams. We keep going. Chickasaw, 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 Chickasaw. Uh-huh. Look at that. Right? Now, how many of your families have a bloodline to the Williams? Choctaw, here it goes. I just told you about it. Also is Choctaw. Here it is. Now as you get to Choctaw, 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 it's all by blood, y'all. So how can Williams be of the Choctaw, Williams be of the Chickasaw, Williams be of the Cherokee? But yet not the same people? Now Choctaw is Cherokee is Choctaw is Washita. It's Washita. Oh, now we get the Creek. Here we go with the Creek. So Williams is in the Creek clan. Williams is in the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, and the Cherokee. And most of it is by blood. Even though we did see a couple of intermarriages. But most of it is by blood. By blood. So we see that Williams run through nearly all the 5 so-called, what they refer to it as, civilized tribes. Isn't that something? Oh, and here go the Seminole. So that means Williams are in all 5 civilized tribes, y'all. But yeah, Williams is one of the most popular names among so-called Negroes. It's rare that you would find Europeans with the last name Williams, right or wrong. Say it again.
I have a question.
Yes. Yes.
Because a lot of these tribes are coming up under the same name, Williams.
Right.
Did the tribes split up on their own, or did they split after the Europeans got here?
They're split on their own, but they came back together in defense of one another based on the European coming here. Right. Well, part of it. First, we had the Choctaw who came from the interior of Mexico, who was part of the heritage of the Olmecs, and they came up into the Mississippi Delta or Valley. All right. The Creek, who is known as the Muskogee, they broke off from the Choctaw. All right. And then the Seminoles broke off from them. This is why they all spoke the same language. All right. The Cherokee was part of a branch of who they refer to as the Phoenicians, the Moors, in which that mixed in with who we refer to as the Choctaw. All right. But the Choctaw is also part of the Washita, as the Washita was part of the Olmecs. So there's also everybody that we talking about right here is part of the same exact family. He said they just broke away and formed their own tribes, but the different tribal names in which they fell under, in this case, Williams was one that went through all 5 of them. So Williams just didn't stay Cherokee or Choctaw. It spread it through all of the tribes. All 5 so-called civilized tribes names that is on the Doss roll. And the only way that could possibly have happened is if they came back together again. And when the European came and he started trying to domesticate and civilize the so-called 5 civilized tribes, it was already civilized, and that's the reason why he was able to get any leadway in, was because there already was intelligent. They was already part of a culture in which that allowed for freedom of expression. We find that the Cherokee was part of the Iroquois Confederation at one time. Now, that's deep because we would think that the Cherokee was just in the South. Because when we hear about the Trails of Tears, we hear of Andrew Jackson, who was also a mulatto, quadroon. All right. He moved the Cherokee from out of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And he sent them towards their brothers and sisters who was Choctaw and Creek out towards Oklahoma. But this is the reason why. These are all of the same people coming back together again, as we always do. Especially when it came to defense. Because remember, the Seminoles fought against the Europeans. So see, they got us thinking that they civilized all of these so-called Native Americans, and that's not the case, because how could that be if we fought you from 1715 to 1858? That's 2 years before Abraham Lincoln became president, and they only put him in the presidential seat, just like they did Barack Obama, was because of the rise of the Moors. These are the Moors in which they are referring to: the Seminole, the Choctaw, the Creek, which is Muskogee, the Cherokee, the Chickasaw. So we already was banded together, and we got along with each other as particular clans and tribes. Well, families, clans, and tribes, and nations. This is why Williams is one of the largest families as we see here, that run through all 5 branches because it was one of the largest families, just like Cherokee is one of the largest tribes to this very day. And if you have a lot of these Cherokee with this name Williams, and as we seen at least 4 pages or more with just Cherokee alone of the name Williams out of the 21. Matter of fact, it probably was more than that.
Dr. Alim, I have another question on something you just mentioned there.
Mm-hmm.
I found out not long ago, my mother told me on my grandmother's side that we're Cherokee, and when I was looking into it, it's kind of what led me to this conference today. I found an old map. She told me that her father, their family was from Pennsylvania, but when I saw that old map, it mentioned the Iroquois.
Right.
Did you dig deeper into
Yeah.
the names? Thank you.
All right. All these tribes that I just made mention of are Algonquin. The Algonquin, if you look up, they spoke Hebrew, Arabic. Now, Hebrew and Arabic are nothing more than variances of another language, which is called Phoenician. And we find that Phoenician is nothing but ancient Egyptian, hieroglyphics, or Metrunetcher. So they spoke the same language, essentially. And this is why when you go and do a Cherokee DNA test, you'll find that Phoenician, Moors, Canaanites, Moabites, all of these particular names show up in their DNA tests, showing that they were originally melanated people. You know, so these Cherokees was part of the Iroquois Confederation at one time. In fact, that's where the Iroquois come from. They are remnants of the Cherokee. Matter of fact, the Iroquois, as they are said, is actually Chickaquoy, and the Chickaquoy are the Cherokee. So that means that the Iroquois is nothing more than a remnant of various tribes that was made mostly up of the Cherokee. But now you had the Tuscarora. Now the Tuscarora, they left from where? North Carolina. That means that they also had Cherokee heritage. You have the Mohawk. It's no coincidence that that when you find the first convention of the Mohawks, and then when you go into the first convention of the Mohawk, which was in the late 1800s, you find that the Mohawks were the Negroes. Now hold on. How the hell did you go from Mohawks, which we thinking is Indian, to that is the first conference for the Negro? If this is called the first conference for the Mohawks, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Let's look once again. The Mohawk Conference. This is called the Negro Question. But yet, the conference was one of 2 held at Lake Mohawk, dealing with the situation of the African American population that means through which improvement. Now, hold up. But it was called the Mohawk Convention. There it is. The second Mohawk Convention on the Negro question. So why would you correlate the Mohawk? Because see, they're trying to say that, oh, it was Lake Mohawk. Lake Mohawk? For real? No, the Mohawk is talking about the Negro, one and the same people. And this is what this is showing you, the Negro question. In other words, now that we've stripped them from their Mohawk identity, their Native American or American Moorish identity, what can we do now? What do we need to do now? They have accepted the Negro terminology, the label of Negro. Because remember, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, a Japanese was a Japanese from Japan. A Chinese was Chinese from China. You know, if we was from Africa, then we should have been Africans from Africa. But 20 years ago, they was using the terminology Negroes. So at the turn of the century, 1900, right? So at the turn of the right, there's no Negro land, but they was using the term Negro. Of course, see, this was to disassociate us from the land. This is how they stole the land from us. Because we was no longer Mohawks. Because Mohawk is identity in which that means that you was part of the Iroquois Confederation. The same confederation in which that gave them, quote unquote, the white. Gave them the Constitution. Exactly. So if you can separate the people who gave you the Constitution and say that they were just Negro at the turn of the 1900s, and then by 1930, they gave us the name colored. Then by 1960, they gave us the name black. And they used James Brown to do Black and I'm Proud. And that was the squeal, what? The rise once again of the people at the grassroots level. The assassination of Martin Luther King. There was riots. So who did they have to bring in? They had to bring in who? James Brown, because his information, because his music was that soothing to us. Our people would listen to him. And that's when he started saying, oh, we black and we proud. The Black Panthers, SNCC, CORE, SNC, what is it? The Southern Negro Council, whatever it is, SNC something. I forgot. It's not SNCC, it's the other one. But they all was now utilizing the term black. And so this grew rapidly among our people. And then Jesse Jackson steps on the scene in 1984, running for the presidency. And he, by 1988, he steps on the scene to run for the presidency. And by 1990, the term African American becomes the terminology in which that we now utilize. So we're the only people within the last 120 years that have changed our names 5 times. While everybody else over the last 120 years, they've been Japanese from Japan. They might have shortened it during World War II and called them Japs. Huh? Yeah, that's them. Thank you. Appreciate that, God. Keep me on point. But yes, all of them started utilizing the term black, and this is how we began to start using it. And then Jesse Jackass comes on in 1988, and by 1990, we have Martin Luther King birthday celebration coming to the forefront. It's a holiday, and because of that, we accepted the term African American so quickly. Because Jesse Jackass said it, and we wanted Jesse Jackass to be president. And then when he didn't become president, we still held on to that name that he utilized on the presidency. So these are all ploys. This is how we are used to disassociate us from our nationality, disassociate us from our identity, disassociate us from our heritage. And it's seen over and over again, this play. If it's not broke, don't fix it type of thing. So this so-called first and second Mohawk convention is talking about the Negro question. Why would they choose a lake called Mohawk, Lake Mohawk? This is in New York. Why in New York? Well, see, I've gone over this in class, and I've gone over this in a couple of my other videos, that we find that the reason why they refer to New York as the Empire State is because this is where the Sultan of Morocco resided at. And Morocco obviously was not the kingdom of Morocco, but the empire, the Moroccan or Moorish Empire that was here. And the capital for the Moorish Empire was New York City, particularly in the Bronx County. In other words, in the Bronx. Matter of fact, South Bronx. The same place where hip hop rose from is the same place where the seat of the Sultan of Morocco, Mohammed ibn Abdullah Bey, sat there in the Bronx. And the so-called quote unquote signature in which that took place of his, all right, Muhammad Abdullah ibn Abdullah Bey, that was done on the river of Delaware, the Delaware River. This is where it was signed at, the so-called Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the United States and Morocco. It wasn't signed in Morocco because Morocco did not exist. All right. Before 1956, Morocco was a French territory. So see, this is how they've been able to trick us, because they have cut us off from our ancestry. They cut us off from our information. This is how they were able to reconstruct history during the Reconstruction era. Remember, that's when they brought the Klan out. The Klan was to destroy any uppity Negroes. In other words, any Negroes that could read and write, that was able to tell the story. They would go and hunt them down who had land ties, who had land and house, and houses, or, or whatever the case is, who had some type of property. And they would go and lynch them and then castrate them and steal their land. Same thing that we seen on the movie Rosewood, where Elmo, you don't know how to play the piano. That don't mean shit. I still want me a piano. That's the conversation between the two crackers that was sitting on the porch. The mentality. Don't even know how to play the piano, but he want one. So that means I'm going to kill that nigga to get it. That's what happened. That's what happened with the land rights. This is why we tell you, in order to go and regain access to land, you have to go to the Bureau of Land Management. Bureau of Land Management. So we go to the Bureau of Land Management. Here it is, BLM. All right, I know y'all been used to Black Lives Matter, but fuck the Black Lives Matter. We talking about Bureau of Land Management. All right, that's what we talking about. That's the BLM that I'm concerned about. All right, not some movement predicated upon an artificial label once again. That's the BLM I'm concerned about, blm.gov. Okay? That's what I'm concerned with. So we go here, services. You see tribal consultation, land records. You see that, land records? All right. Everything dealing with land, that's what we want to go to. So here, you see the states in which that correlates to Wyoming, Utah, Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, Nevada, Montana, Dakotas, Idaho, eastern states. That's where I'm at. I'm in the eastern state. Colorado, California, Arizona, and Alaska, national office. So this is where you would go and you will find out the state in which that you are closest to, because this is where the Bureau of Land Management are located at within each of these particular states. Okay. So let's go to eastern state. All right, so the Eastern States Office manages public land and their resources for 40,000 surface and 39 million subsurface acres in the 31 states east of and bordering the Mississippi River. So that means anybody on this side of the Mississippi, east of the Mississippi, this is where you would go to. Let's go to Eastern State District offices. Brother Jerry, you gonna have to mute your background, God. You smacking a little bit too hard up on there. Yeah, we can hear you, God, loud and clear. All right, so right here. All right, so right here we have the Southern State District offices. So that's where I would go to, being that I'm in North Carolina. Those who are in New York territory, they would go to the Northeastern State District office, and et cetera. And those who are, between that or whatever the case is, there's the whole thing of the Eastern States State office. So we're showing you where you would go at and where you would get information concerning land patterns. This is the Office of the Land Patterns, is the Bureau of Land Management. And you would contact the Bureau of Land Management and you will find out the acreage in which that your family originally owned. And then you would contact them in order to find out specifically the real acreage. Of course, sometimes the real acreage would be a lot larger and more than what your family had on their deed. And if that is the case, then you would utilize that land pattern number that's on the land pattern, which you can get an original copy of the land pattern from the Bureau of Land Management. You had to be certified copy. And you can utilize that and put on a new deed, in which that I would recommend that you will have that deed already part of a, we refer to it as a non-profit religious organization, at least starting out, until you can get to the allodial title portion in which that correlates to this information. All right. So let's go to land records. Federal land records, public land statistics, public land orders, BLM, public record, a room, landscape approach data portal. All right. General land office records. All right. So this is United States Department of Interior. This is where the Bureau of Land Management is under. Who else is under this? is what is referred to as the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, is under this. This is why you've seen tribal consultations. So right here, as you see, you can get the land patterns. There it is, land patterns. Bam. This is where you want to go, or what you want to know. Bam. You can put in the location, the state, county, last name, first name, middle name. And think about it. We just showed you how you can tie it in. You got the Williams name, and you see that the William is part of all 5 civilized tribes. You put the last name Williams in, and it might tell you some of the land in which that the family owned. And even give you miscellaneous, and give you tribes right here. As you see, Indian allotment, all of this in miscellaneous, land description. All right, so then you search through patterns, you search for it, find out what you need. See, this is what has to be done. This is research. See, if you don't know the land in which that your family had at one time, then you would have to utilize the surname, the last name. But this is where we get into the deep information. Because remember, Williams. Remember, Williams. Mississippi Choctaw identity. Seminole by blood. You know? This is what we're talking about. So, this is how we connect the pieces on the land documentation. All right. All right. So my book, The First World Order, speaks about some of this information in there. Then we have another book that is out. My wife and I wrote. It's called The Occult Powers of Psalms, The Art of Candle Burning, and the Healing Aromas of Incense. But we always have to start out with this age-old information, because it's a wonder how these Albions or Europeans have taken us over within the last 100 years or so. Since we have stopped fighting them. Because 150 years ago, we were still fighting. All right, physically fighting. So since they could not beat us physically, they had to get, because they said that we was one of the most formidable opponents that they have ever come across. And we did not surrender. No matter if we was tortured or what, we would not give them an inch of information. Well, we know them days are gone. You got to snitch on every goddamn block now. All right. But before, we had pride in ourselves, and we really loved each other, and we would have died for each other. I'd rather live for you. We've seen the dying aspects too many times already. Martin Luther the King, you know, Gabriel Prosser, Denmark Vesey, allegedly Nat Turner, Malcolm X, El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz, Medgar Evers. We've seen the dying. You know, now it's time to live and get back our right minds and realize that in order to really beat them at their own game is to learn the science of law and to get back to what we refer to as the pen is more mightier than the sword. Understanding how to write writs, contract law, constitutional law, natural law, universal law. All right. So the various articles and books mentioned above testify to the fact and proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that we are the oldest and the most indigenous people on earth. Those books I just showed you, Forbidden Archaeology and the Hidden History of the Human Race. Those 2 books read by Michael Cremore and Richard L. Thompson prove that we are the oldest people on the face of the earth. And we ain't just talking about 200 to 300,000 years ago. You're talking about 2.8 billion, 3 billion years ago and more. All right. Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that the so-called black man and black woman has no set birth record. All right. And I'm utilizing his terminology, the so-called black man and black woman. The following information is from the said white supremacist, racist, or white dominance perspective. That's what we refer to it as. That would simply quote the revised history that 99.9% of said black Americans descended from Central West Africa, which we did, but not the majority of us 400 years ago, has been very well documented already. All right. This occurred in several impacts over a course of 600 million years. And you can read this in Forbidden Archaeology and the Hidden History of the Human Race by Michael Cremore and Richard L. Thompson. Yet the same said white supremacist racists cannot dismiss the scholarly information presented here, nor can they explain the following data. Allegedly, 5 million to 20 million slaves arrived in the United States or between 1540 and 1850 over 1540 to 1850 over a 310-year period, according to United States history books. If you look at the following facts on published material, we are living under one ideological part of American revisionist history. According to the following undermines the whole breadth and depth of what is written in American history books. By using simple calculations, the following information can be ascertained. Over a period of 300 years, is it fair to say that 60,000 slaves was transported annually to the Americas, and have the transportation of slaves to the Americas been one big myth? The largest seagoing vessel carries 400 slaves, but not all of the ships were that large. Time of passage was 3 to 4 months. That means 200 vessel ships per year would have traveled carrying 300 people. One ship could make 3 passages per year. And then only 3 passages because you know that from October, the end of September to October, you know, that's hurricane season, you know, so they wouldn't travel during that time period. So they could have had 4 passages, but one of the passages in which that is last 3 months is where you have the terrible weather conditions from hurricanes to, to winter weather. So the transatlantic slave trades database say that there were 1,100 to 1,400 voyages, which was made over a 300-year period. If this is the case, then each ship carries 400 people, you know, then that would be the total of, so let's see. Number would be 560,000 Africans who was transported. It still does not add up. Because remember, they told us that 12 million was bought here to 15 million that was bought here from Africa. But the calculations only came up to 560,000. So according to the figure above, many more slaving companies would have been in business of human trafficking annually to come up with the numbers of slaves actually transported. But the published material listed only 3. All right, apologize for the background. All right, so right here, there's only 3 major companies that dealt in the slave trade, and that was given 31 years of monopoly by the British government. You had the Royal Adventures, later was named the Royal African Company established, which is where you get the term race from. It's from here. Race is an acronym for Royal African Company Establishment. Once again, race, the word race is an acronym. There is no such thing as race. Race is an acronym. Royal African Company Establishment. So it is one of in the same company. Independent companies engaged in slave trade, but there was only 3 main companies engaged in human trafficking. You have the Guinea Company, which is at its height was 15 ships from 1618 to 1650. The Guinea Company also dealt in gold, dyes, and other things that other than just human trafficking of slaves. British, French, Dutch, and Danish participated in the human trafficking. Right, statistics there that Portuguese, has not been taken into consideration that Portuguese ships that sailed at the time, but from what is out there, the Portuguese and Spanish transported 81,000 slaves to the Americas. All right, this is Slavery Statistics by Hugh Thomas, published in 1997 by Simmons and Sefsler. All right, the statistics states only 0.05% or half of one of all indigenous people of North America are in existence as a result of Christopher Columbus and his European travelers' conquest. 95% was massacred, all right, by Columbus and his European crew shortly after 1492. Around 1900, it was thought Native Americans were on the brink of extinction with only 250,000 left, which is the most common sense question asked by Moors. What water distillation process did the European possess? Because the cargo is precious and the need for survival is extremely high. It's a 3 to 4 month voyage, which estimated 200 POWs on the ships you have to give fresh water daily to. The average person can go without water for a week or a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks at the most. How did they survive? How much fresh water was taken? Not knowing how many so-called slaves was going to be captured. It is nothing more than revisionist history. If this is not true, then explain why said blacks were not able to read and write for over 100 years, from 1740 to 1863. Because during that time period, they was revising history in the so-called southern states. And we own and rule the southern states. Remember, where was the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Seminole, and the Creek, which is the Muskogee. Those 5 civilized tribes were in the South. So here it is for 100 years, 1740 to 1863. Technically, 123 years. We was not able to read and write. Remember, if you was caught reading and writing, you would have been what? Beaten severely or killed. Okay, remember that. So I suspect to rewrite our heritage into his story. That's what I suspect. 123 years of not allowing a people to read and write. I suspect that that whole thing was to rewrite our heritage into his story. And in the 18th century, there was no schools in the southern states of America. Okay. If you get the Black Washita Nation of America, blacks also owned miles of U.S. pre-Columbian land by Paul Barden. This is what he states. One of the saddest aspects of enslavement in America, particularly in North America, is the fact that all forms of education was denied to us and still is today. Blacks were forced to remain ignorant and told they had no history or culture. Well, here's the problem. Most African Americans are still void of historical knowledge, particularly of their ownership of land rights here in the United States. Blacks own about actually more of 100 square miles of land in the Louisiana Territory and the southeastern Florida region, as well as California. In all these areas of the United States, there were said Black African-American nations before Columbus who were targeted for enslavement due to the papal edict that gave the Christian nations of Europe the go-ahead to make slaves of all the descendants of Ham found in the newly discovered land. So why would the Pope write a papal edict and send that shit out to his churches throughout Europe, in which that these sellers who were Catholics would then get on their ships and sail across in order to enslave the descendants of Ham? Hold up, if I'm not mistaken, the word Ham within the biblical Hebrew text means black. So why would he say to go ahead to enslave all descendants of Ham? So that means that the Indians were descendants of Ham. And Ham means black in Hebrew. It comes from the indigenous ancient Egyptian name Cam. We would get the word chemistry from, alchemy from, the study of the black substance called melanin. Cam, found in the newly discovered lands. So they knew that there was blacks here in this land because the Pope wrote a whole goddamn papal edict on the shit. This fact cannot be denied. The essay on said Black civilization of ancient America, published in a great book, Susa Economics, the History of Pan-African Trade, Commerce, Money, and Wealth, tells a reality to this. While many of African ancestors was kidnapped in Africa, many were Africans that came from West Africa, had a number of kingdoms and empires in the southern part of the United States, and who were captured, had their lands taken, and their persons sold into slavery. These Africans were direct so-called black ancestors, and there had a continuing connection with West Africa, which included trade and commerce on the very eve of the invasion of the Europeans to the Americas. All right. In the book, it tells you in Susa Economics that we was doing import and export with each other, our brothers and sisters in Africa and our brothers and sisters here in the Americas. We were doing import and export with each other for over 100,000 years. I'm gonna say that again. We was doing import and export with each other for 100,000 years. Over 100,000 years we've been doing import and export with each other. Get the book Sex and Race by J. Rogers. Also, They Came Before Columbus by Ivan von Sertima. All right? Get the Emperor's book, The Return of the Ancient Ones. Empress Vediasi Tierra Washington Turnica Gaston El-Bey. She states that 85% of the so-called blacks over here in America was already here before the slave trade. Only 15% of blacks arrived 400 years ago from Africa. And this is where it comes in at. If I take cream and put it in the drink, coffee, does it become cream or is it still called coffee? You can't take 15% of blacks who come from Africa 400 years ago and name all of them Africans when 85% of the blacks that was already here in the Americas were already indigenous to here. And then you take the 15% that came from Africa who was indigenous to Africa, because we're indigenous regardless of where we go all over the planet Earth, because we're the oldest people on the planet. So regardless, we have the indigenous or indige genes, indigene, the gene. That means genes. Indi means within. All right, it means black. There's melanin within. These genes within. So only 15% arrived 400 years ago. So there was a slave trade, but only 8 to 15%. The other 85 to 92% of the so-called black ancestry of ours was already in the Americas. Now, how can it not be when at the same time they tell you about the Olmecs, who was here nearly 5,000 years ago? And act as if they just stayed in the Mexican Yucatan Peninsula and they never traveled outside of Mexico. as if they weren't in the islands, or what we refer to as Puerto Rico, Jamaica, having that maroon ancestry, in the Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago. They was there. The Olmec descendants are there too. They was here in the Americas because they came as the Choctaw, which is the Washita, on up into the Mississippi Delta area and spread it out into the South. All right. So we all came from Africa, if that's what they want to say. But even before Africa, that's might have been where we landed at. But we came from Mars prior to this, to us coming to Earth. We was on Mars. Prior to Mars, we was on 5 other planets. We jumped. This is the 7th planet that we have traveled to save ourselves. This is the 7th planet. The 6th planet is known as the red planet, which is Mars. We became from before we came here. This is a proven fact. There's a face on Mars that's a mile wide and long. There's pyramids on Mars, so forth and so on. So the same thing in which that we was building here on Earth, we built there on Mars. So when we landed here, we landed in what we was considered the center of the Earth, which would be considered nowadays what we refer to as Africa, or in particular, Egypt, Ethiopia. That's the center of the Earth, right there near the equator. Some want to argue and say it was in the Antarctica or Arctic. One of the two. But there is a suppressed history of Blacks being a global people, or worldly people, as I would say. Pangea proved all of the continents were connected. So migration to and from Africa into other places was simple. And this is what we show right here. Look at it. This is what was called Pangea. As you see, United States, Canada was all connected on Africa, on the places of Morocco, Mauritania, Algiers, as you see here. Right along the eastern coast is Mauritania and Morocco. Coincidence? Then you have Brazil, South America, fitting right there into the Ivory Coast, the Gold Coast, on down into South America. This is a fake map called the Mercator map, showing Greenland, all right, larger than South America. Damn near larger than Africa. This is to show white supremacy, dominance in the Mercator map. But it's not true. All right, we know that we can take the United States, India, China, Australia, and fit all of them in Africa. The fact that they don't want us to have our relationship with our brothers and sisters in Africa shows that they don't want us to have the unification in which that we once did as the Moorish Empire. So you got Negroes over here who saying that they're just Black Indians, but yet trying to disassociate themselves with their brothers and sisters in Africa because they hear that Hebrew Israelite bullshit. Oh, fuck them Africans. We ain't the same people. Fuck them. If Akon, Akon, was walking down the street right now, you wouldn't know he was African. If Brother Godfrey walked down the street right now, you ain't know he was Nigerian. Right or wrong? Look at Akon. Look at Brother Godfrey. You wouldn't know. And so they tell you that they came from Africa. So they're all brothers and sisters on the African continent that look just like you. Even though there was a few years ago, there was a guy who was putting out memes that African Americans ain't African. Right, not necessarily from 400 years ago. Of course, some of us don't have slave ancestry over the last 250 years, 300 years. So that means that we didn't mix in per se with our African brothers and sisters from there. Some people have slave ancestry. And that means that they did mix in with those in which that came from Africa. But remember, they put some of us who was indigenous to the Americas into slavery also. So this is how the world actually supposed to look. The maps in which they've been showing us is upside down. This is right side up here. This is where it's supposed to look. All right, so you get the Ra expeditions. Right here's the website. The Ra expedition proved that the ancient Egyptian sunboats were capable of worldly travel. All right. Additionally, temples have been built and named after Egyptian gods, and hieroglyphics have been found in the Grand Canyon. In Oklahoma in the 1800s, a still of Pharaoh Akhenaten, who was Amenhotep IV, aka Moses of the Bible, who is also known as Unc-Unten, was found. There was a Sphinx found in Memphis, Tennessee. A Sphinx. All right, this correlates to the fact that Abraham Lincoln said that it was a Egypt of the West. So just like there's an Egypt of the East called Egypt, he said there was also an Egypt of the West, in which that was supposed to be returned to the Moors. You get the Ice, the Ultimate Disaster by Richard Noon. In his book, he speaks about some of this information. Right, in the book, America BC, there is an alabaster egg of a cartouche of King Tut found in Idaho. Therefore, you may ask whether other impacts have occurred throughout the millennium. And of course, these are all the ancient Egyptian impacts over and over again. There's 18 temples in the Grand Canyon. The Temple of Ra, the Temple of Set, the Temple of Osar, which is Osiris. These temples are there. You can go and take pictures, but they will not allow for you to go down into them. And these particular temples dates back during the 18th dynastic period, the time of Akhenaten and Unc-Unten, the time of Hatshepsut, the 18th dynastic period, which is known as the Amana period of time of the 18th dynastic period, showing also that Pharaoh Akhenaten obviously did not die. He came here to the Americas. If there was a still that they have of Akhenaten in which that they found in the 1800s. So they claim that historically that Akhenaten, they allege that he was poisoned. But y'all can't, hold up. his son, King Tut, allegedly was the one who was poisoned. So this is why we find impacts over and over again. So we have the impacts of the Egyptians who came here during the 18th dynastic period. We have the Malian people who was known as the Mandinka people who came here 5,000 years ago. The 18th dynastic period, for those who don't know, was 3,500 years ago to 4,000 years ago. So that means that the Olmec people came here prior to right before the Egyptians came, and the Egyptians came right after them. So anyone who studied Professor Walter Williams, he'll tell us that we are the Egyptians. And this is what he means. You have several impacts of the Malians coming in, and the Malians are specifically those of the Dogon and Mandinka people, which is one and the same people, in which that is part of the Dinka tribe, which is the Nubians who came from out of the interior of Egypt, as well as also Sudan, Ethiopia. United Nations definition of indigenous: those people having historical continuity with pre-invasions and pre-colonial societies considered themselves distinct from other sectors of society now prevailing in those territories or parts of them. They form at present a non-dominant sector of society and are determined to preserve, develop, and transmit to future generations their ancestral territories and their ethnic identity as the basis of their continued existence as a people in accordance with their own cultural patterns, social institutions, and legal systems. That's the United Nations definition on indigenous. Now, if you go to the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which actually passed, that was in September 18, 1995. It passed in 2016, the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People that passed in 2016. All right. Just 5 years ago, y'all. It has the definition of indigenous people. And it says in this definition, indigenous people are those who embody historical continuity with societies which existed prior to the conquest and settlement of their territories by Europeans, as well as people brought involuntarily to the New World who freed themselves and reestablished the culture from which they have been torn. Well, hold up. Who are the people that was brought here to the New World? They would be the ones in which that is referred to as the slaves in which that came from Africa. But most people don't realize that they also did a triangle move. They did from North America, South America, and the adjoining islands. They would take the so-called slaves that they gathered from North and South America and take them to the Caribbeans, West Indies. And why would they call these islands the West Indies if these wasn't West Indians? And knowing how these West Indians look, like you and I. But they would take them to the Caribbean islands because this is where they would break them at. They would break, all right, according to Willie Lynch's speech, all right, even though we know that it was not a true document, it still held some key points in there because it came from African or Afro-American history written by Malcolm X, Al-Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz. The same stories in which that is found in the Willie Lynch letter is partially inside of Afro-American. All right, and this is the book. Let me show you the book written by Malcolm X because most people have not read this book by Malcolm X. This is the book here. Malcolm X on Afro-American history. Right? In this book is where the Willie Lynch letter comes from. All right? So the stories in which that he tells in this book actually comes from Dr. John Henry Clark and Dr. Ben Yakinen. These were his teachers after he left the Nation of Islam and also while he was in the Nation of Islam. And this is the reason why Malcolm's information stood over the other ministers' information at that time period. All right. This is why he had more information. He was on a different level from the other ministers who was just quoting Honorable Elijah Muhammad. All right, so had to show you all that right quick. So right here, the people who existed prior to the invasion of their territory is talking about those who never were enslaved, which is part of our bloodline heritage because they could not enslave millions of people, just like they can't force millions of people to take this fucking shot. It's only the jackasses who end up taking the shot because, well, I want to travel. Oh, well, I got to keep my job. Them the ones that they preyed on. But there's millions of people who don't have a job, millions of people who ain't taking that shit, and they can't force them to. So just like in slavery, it was millions of people who did not and was not enslaved, except the ones who accepted the shots as the same ones who accepted slavery. And as sadly as we want to say, Kanye West was right about that shit. And you a slave because you wanted to be a slave, nigga. Ain't no man can force you to do anything that you don't want to do or have an inkling of doing yourself. So it says people brought involuntarily to the New World, not meaning that it was just Africans, even though we talking about 8 to 15% of our present DNA did come from Africa 400 years ago. But remember, we also talking about 200 years before Christopher Columbus came, Abu Bakari brought 22,000 to 25,000 people here from Africa on 2,200 ships. So we're talking about over 20,000 people. He brought a whole fucking city, town to the Americas 200 years before Christopher Columbus. I'm telling you that this is where the majority of your so-called African blood comes from. Because if you go and do your research, you will find that the same places in which they claim that they took us from is the same exact places in which that Abu Bakari came here with his people 200 years before Christopher Columbus. Do everybody understand what I just said? In other words, even the alleged blood of the 8 to 15% in which that is said to have come from Africa did not come from the Europeans, but 200 years before the Europeans, and that was by Abu Bakari II, who was the richest man in the world and who built 2,200 ships in order to sell. He himself, as well as his people, sailed over here. And that was 1311, 1312, and 1313. The first expedition in which that he sent was 200 ships and one came back. So 199 other ships came into America. Then he built another 2,000 ships and he himself sat at the helm and came here. Now, there was other people who came here prior to him, before Abu Bakari. There's another impact that came 100 some odd years before him from out of the same area. So anyone who was here prior to Christopher Columbus was part of the pre-colonial, pre-Columbian invasion of their territory, was considered indigenous, aboriginal from here. So this is why you see dark-skinned natives, as they would say, indigenous people. So not only were we already here, the emperor says we was already here 100,000 years ago. The Olmecs 5,000 years ago. Right? Abu Bakari and his people 100 years before that, and 200 years before Christopher Columbus. So we're talking about 700 to 800, 900, actually 900 years ago. We was already here. So 900 years we was already here. 5,000 years ago we was already here. The Folsom people from out of Arizona was 75,000 years ago was already here. The Washita was already here over 100,000 years ago. And the books that teach us that we was here 600 million years ago is The Hidden History of the Human Race by Richard L. Thompson. So indigene, that's the gene from the French indigene, from Latin indigena, sprung from the land. As a noun, a native, literally inborn. Indigene or indigenous. Occitanus means native, indigenous, right? It goes back to 1590s, indigene. Occitanus goes back to 1845. Right, so 200 years before we used the term Occitanus, which is a Greek word, we was already using indigene. So we want to be looked at as indigenous. Well, according to the United Nations, it says self-identification as indigenous or tribal shall be regarded as a fundamental criterion for determining the group to which the provisions of this declaration applies. So that means that you have the right to declare and define yourself and have self-identification as indigenous or tribal. The Albion asks when he see your indigenous paperwork or your indigenous card and your nationality is washed or whatever the case is, well, we don't recognize that. Who the fuck are you to recognize something, bitch? Who are you? You ain't no fucking body to damn determine if I can damn be indigenous and tribal. This is the arrogance of their white supremacy, of their superiority complex that they have, which is actually an inferiority complex. Who are you to determine if I am who I say I am? I had a damn stupid ass cop to say that shit in court one time. Well, they Americans, they are United States citizens. I said, ma'am, according to the Dred Scott case, it states specifically that we're not U.S. citizens, nor will we ever be. So the officer will have to prove that. The officer got upset, and the judge had to calm his monkey ass down and say, excuse me, sir, but they should know who they are or not, if they are U.S. citizens or not. And this is the same judge in Raleigh, North Carolina, that she told the clerk that she wanted to talk to us after the court. She came running to the elevator to catch up with us in order to talk to us about that. So she wanted to know, and she defended us in court. Sir, they should know if they citizens or not. Yeah, because based on the court case that I just gave you, which is taught to all lawyers in school, in law school, that's one of the first fucking damn cases that they get taught in. It's about the Dred Scott case decision. And Judge Taney specifically said Negroes and those of African descent. So if you're going to call me an African, you got the name African American as a label for me, then what does that mean? You see me as an African. And if that is the case, then I'm going to use the fucking law, that's the loophole, to get out of that shit. And that is the Dred Scott case decision, where it specifically states, I'm not a citizen, nor will I ever be. Case closed. That means you have no fucking jurisdiction over me. First thing, before we even get to the case, you got to prove that I'm a goddamn citizen, that you have jurisdiction over me in any regards in this matter. That's the first thing that you have to realize when it comes to any court case. I don't give a fuck if it's about drugs, children, if it's a traffic violation, you got to have some fucking jurisdiction to even have me in this court. I came here on my own accord because of threat, arrest, or coercion. If I did not come, you would have put out a warrant for my arrest and have these fucking bailiffs slash sheriffs to come, deputies to come out in order to arrest me. That's why before you even go to court, you put in a notice of special appearance. You never go to court without putting in your documentation. You have to put in an affidavit because a judge can't rule on an affidavit. An affidavit is an expression of your truth. It's an expression of your truth. So once again, how in the hell can a police officer, a sheriff, or state highway patrolman, Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Transportation, or any of them motherfuckers can say that you ain't indigenous or you ain't who you state that you are? When you have documentation that has already been put on the public record that's stating that you are indigenous and that you tribal. They can't. And it's sealed by their own clerks of court, of the Superior Court, of the Circuit Court, or at the Register of Deeds, or at the County Recorder's Office, whichever one that you want to go to, or whichever one in which that the county sends you to in order to get your documents put on the public record. Because the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People was passed by 144 nations. Indigenous people and individuals are free and equal to all other peoples. You have to start acting as if you are free and equal to all other people. Right now, because of this bullshit that they just did with this COVID shit, and niggas having to depend on a job, depend on all these things, regardless of their health. When health is the wealth, all right, your health is your wealth, not no fucking job. Just to get the fucking jab, just to get the jab in the job. The job is the jabby job. The jabby jabby job. Just to get that, you got to have that. No, fuck that. Yes. You go to another county. Yep, it's just that simple. Because somebody's going to know their job. Somebody will know their job. There's so many counties that we had to open up here in North Carolina because they didn't know their job at one time. But now we can go almost to any county in North Carolina and file our documentation. They got the memo. Because a lot of our documentation was filed in Raleigh. So when the other counties seen that we have previous documentation filed in Raleigh, Raleigh is the capital. That means the rest of the motherfuckers had to go on and do the same thing. It's called stare decisis in a court case. When there's one ruling, then shit, you got to follow that shit. It would be wise to follow that ruling then. So indigenous people and individuals are free and equal to all other peoples and individuals and have the right to be free from any kind of discrimination. Do you think that this allows for you to be free from any discrimination when they're trying to force the vaccine on you? And if you don't get it, you can't travel, then that's discrimination. If you don't get it, you can't go into a movie theater, then that's discrimination. If you don't get it, you can't go into a restaurant, that's discrimination. Is that free from any kind of discrimination to you as being indigenous? No, it's not. In the exercise of their rights, in particular, the base of on their indigenous origin or identity. So they discriminating against you. First, they already discriminate against you because, number one, you're dark complected, you have melanin. So when they see that, oh, you a nigger. Or when they see that, oh, you black. Oh, you one of them African Americans. But if you specify your indigenous origin and identity, then why do they keep referring to you as such, that you are black? See, this is the thing that they try to do in the so-called police try to do, and other officials try to do, try to keep you in Negro, black, and colored status because they don't want their slaves free. And now you got these black Indians talking about they ain't Moors, and therefore they still trapped in the same category as Negro, black, and colored. Because now they black Indians. When the word Indian means black people. So I'm black of black people. I'm the black of the black people. That's what black Indian means. I'm black of the black people. Article 4. Indigenous peoples in exercising their right to self-determination have the free from any kind of discrimination in the exercise of their right to autonomy or self-government in matters relating to their internal and local affairs. Meaning, no one else have any say-so on the shit that we doing in our own self-government, as we have self-autonomy and self-government in our own internal and local affairs, as well as the means for financing their autonomous functions. As well as the means for financing their autonomous functions. Wow. That means if we set up our shit right, the IRS can't fuck with us. How you do that? You do it through a religious protection, a non-profit religious organization where you don't have to pay any taxes to the IRS. It's called a 508, not a 501c1, a 501c, or 50, what is it, 501c? Yeah, C3. Yeah, that's it, 501c3. But this is what they caught us up on. Look, Lyndon Baines Johnson, after the assassination, which he participated in, of Kennedy, all right? He put the quote unquote, he put that into order, the 501c3, because they realized that the churches were being utilized for freedom of speech, political freedom of speech. The churches was politicizing the people. This is where Martin Luther King came from, was from the church, and how he entered into politics. So in order to stifle the political activities of the churches, 501c3. But guess what? You never needed a 501c3 regardless, you're tax exempt. So people who become political in a 501c3 have to worry and be concerned about the taking away of their tax exemption. So therefore, they never get political. They won't say what needs to be said. So this is why you don't see the churches talking up. Why they stick strictly to the Bible. And there's certain passages that they won't even read. Like the ones I'm always revealing. Hold on, nigga, this here, 1 Corinthians, the 12th chapter, states there's gifts in which I'm supposed to have. Hold on. 1 Corinthians, the 3rd chapter, 16th verse says that God dwells within me. It's not just me. That means each and every one of us. So why the fuck would I need a church if God already is within me? And I am the temple of God. It says my body is the temple. Then that means I don't need a goddamn temple, mosque, synagogue, church. Because the real prayer is within my mind, which is called affirmations, positive decrees. See, this is how simple this shit is, but we get caught up. Article 6 of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People says every indigenous individual have the right to a nationality. Now, why would they put that in there if everybody has a nationality? Because like we said, Chinese people is from China, Japanese people is from Japan, Africans are from Africa, Europeans are from Europe, niggas are from where? Where we from? Oh, we from Africa and America. So we African American. And Africa is first. In order to make us think, hold on, but I could have sworn that individuals like Richard Louis B. Leakey and Richard Leakey leaked the shit out in the 1950s that we all from Africa. So why there's no African Europeans? Where the fuck is the African European at? Where the fuck is the African Chinese at? Where the fuck is the African Australian at? But yet we African American? What the fuck is that? Obviously that shit doesn't exist because there's no African Europeans. Yet we all came from Africa. There's no African Orientals, but yet they say we all came from Africa. Which one is it? We need a nationality. That's my point for why we did what we did the other night. In order to show that we need a nationality. Dr. John Henry Clark says that your nationality must instantaneously tie you back to land, culture, and history. That's what he said. Land, culture, and history. I look up the definition of land. The word Moors is embedded inside that fucking definition. Meaning that Moors and land are synonymous and can be interchangeable. Obviously, me tying myself back to land leads me to a nationality. And the only word in the definition of land is Moors. But yet niggas don't want to be Moors. They want to be black, African American, black Indian. They want to, What the fuck is that? Has no ties to land once again. The only word that's in the Black's Law Dictionary that ties us back to land is the word Moors. That's the only word. Look up the definition. Somebody go get me the goddamn Black's Law Dictionary, please. Read definition of land for me, please. Please, come on. Please. Let's read that. All right? Somebody don't get it for me, I get it myself. And what dictionary is that? All right. So I just got a new one. Let's open it up. Crack this sucker open. My wife got this for me. New joint. Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, deluxe. All right, let's look up land and get a even more extensive definition. Land. All right, let's look it. All right. Land, in the most general sense, comprehends any ground, soil, or earth whatsoever. So, as fields, meadows, pastures, woods, moors, waters, marshes, forests, and heaths. Wait, right there. Can y'all see it? So this is the reason why within, amazingly, Dr. John Henry Clark says that instantaneously tie you back to land, history, and culture, your nationality. So if the word Moors is embedded inside the definition of land, that means that it ties us instantaneously back to our nationality. Right or wrong? See, this is how common sense this shit is. But we got a lot of fucking damn agents out there. A lot of, and I hear them and I listen to them and I'm like, either they're not studying, they're not putting the pieces together, or they have their own fucking agenda, or they paid agents. It's either a conspiracy or dumbness. But I know from research that this shit makes sense because of Dr. John Henry Clark. When he says that your nationality must instantaneously tie you back to land, culture, and history, I'm thinking what other word in the word land definition in Black's Law Dictionary or any other definition in which that ties us back instantaneously to nationality, and the word Moors is embedded inside of that? Oh, shit. You can't get more instantaneous than that. I know I can't. I can't get more instantaneous than that. There's no way possible. That I'm looking at the word land and the word Moors and land are interchangeable and interconnected and in the definition. But yet you have people saying that we're not Moors. Show me a greater history than that of the Moors within the last 500 years. They ruled Europe for almost 1,000 years. Show me a greater history than that of the Moors. In recent times, within the last 1,000 years. Show me a greater history of the Moors than the Moors. No one can show me a greater history of the Moors than that of the Moors. No one can show me a greater history. But yet you don't want to be called a Moor because it's a bullshit belief that the Moors enslaved Africans. Hold up, nigga. You go to Africa, you see African kings wearing fezzes. That makes them Moors because they got a fez on their head? That's interesting. But see, this is the shit that they listen to SETI about. But yeah, this is the same nigga who got interviewed by my homeboy, Lord Merck. And he asked him, he said, Brother SETI, he said, do you have a nationality? He said, no, but I know I need one. Because he knows African ain't a fucking nationality. He knows Negro, black, and colored is not a nationality. So if he knows that it's not a nationality, then why is he out here bashing the Moors? when the definition is in the word land. And this is how we lost our land, because we stopped tying ourselves back to the land. Remember, when you moor in your anchor, your ship is to the dock. It's sitting at the dock of the bay. You at the dock of the bay, wasting time, watching what the waters roll away, and whatever the case is, just sitting there at the dock of the bay, wasting time. But niggas, we know we wasting time. But at the dock of the bay, yeah, the bay, you got it. You mooring your anchor, right? Because that's what happens when you throw your anchor down. You mooring your ship. You're mooring your ship, right or wrong, to the dock of the bay. Oh shit! I don't know. Y'all might be missing this shit that I'm trying to give you subliminal connections here. It ain't really subliminal. Shit is right in your face. In your face. As David Chappelle would say. It's in your face. Huh? Oh, okay. Got you. Oh, okay. It's all right. I had to break up the new one. It's all right. We got it. Yeah. So let's look at mowing. Mooring, I should say. Mooring. Mooring. What is mooring? Mooring. It deals with ship, time vessel. What that's on what we refer to as what? Hold on, let's look at that. Once again, that's right in Black's Law Dictionary too. Right there. And it says what? In maritime law, anchoring or making fast to the shore or dock, the securing or confining a vessel in a particular station as by cables and anchors. Hence the reason why in masonry they call it a cable tow. Oh shit. Or by a line or chain run to the wharf. A vessel is moored in safety. So you want to be safe? You want to be secure? You better become a moor. Within the meaning of the policy of maritime insurance, when she is thus moored to a wharf or dock, free from any immediate danger, from any of the perils insured against. Mooring. Mooring. Wow. Just sitting on the dock of the bay. Watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the bay, y'all. Wasting time. That's what most of us doing, wasting time. But yet your nationality is right before your eyes. More. Even have the definition for more in the Black's Law Dictionary. There it is. Let's read it. An officer in the Isles of Man who summons the court. See, the court summons a Moor. A Moor is supposed to summon the court. But that's how we were when we had our own court system called the consular courts. For the several sheddings. That's sheddings is money. The officer is similar to the English bailiff of 100. So that means one Moor was worth 100 bailiffs, which are sheriffs, deputies. We was worth 100 of them at one time. That's how much pull we had at one time. And look at us now. Look at this now. God damn. Indigenous people and individuals have the right to belong to an indigenous community or nation in accordance with the traditions and customs of the community or nation concerned. No discrimination of any kind may arise from the exercise of such a right. So indigenous people have the right, once they declare their nationality, now they have the right to belong to a community or nation. Article 13:1. Indigenous people have the right to revitalize, use, develop, and transmit to future generations their histories. This is why I teach what I teach. Because we got the right to put forth our histories, languages. This is why we taught on the language the other week, on the Egyptian Phoenician language, which is Hebrew and Arabic. That these are languages in which that we spoke, and they are found throughout the so-called Americas. Languages, oral traditions, philosophies, writing systems, and literatures, and to designate and retain their own names for communities, places, and persons. So you have the right to your own indigenous appellation for communities, places, and persons. So you have the right to change your name from Jennifer Smith to let's say Kadera Maya El-Bey, or whatever the case is. You have the right to have your own name for communities, places, and persons. States shall take effective measure to ensure that this right is protected, and also to ensure that indigenous peoples can understand and be understood in political, legal, and administrative proceedings, which necessary through the provision of the interpretation or by other appropriate means. Article 33:1. Indigenous people have the right to determine their own identity. So if you're indigenous, you have the right to determine your own identity, not the police, not the sheriffs or deputies, not the DMV, not the Department of Transportation, not the State Highway Patrol. None of them have the right to determine your identity. You, as indigenous, have the right to determine your identity or membership in accordance with their customs and traditions. This does not impair the right of indigenous individual to obtain citizenship of the states in which they live or domicile in. So that means that you can also have a state ID, because it's nothing more than a privilege. That doesn't take away your indigenous status. In fact, some would think, yes.
So I was born in Haiti,
Right.
Mm-hmm. I just want to highlight the part of the and Arawak and how they got to the island. And I've been here all my life in the States.
Right.
So
that was that's OMEC. That's what we was going over earlier. Those are the OMECs.
So
those are the OMECs. Right. Those are the OMECs heritage. So the exact same heritage that is in the islands is the same exact heritage that is in the so-called United States. We all come from the Olmecs, because the Olmecs been here over 5,000 years ago, and they refer to the Olmecs as Indians. Hold up, let's look at that. Let me show you. Because they don't call the Olmecs just African Americans. They refer to them as Indians. Look at that, the Olmec Indians were a culture of ancient people who lived about 1300 to 400 BC in the eastern Mexico lowlands. Some researchers say that they descended from Asia, Asiatic. Others say they were from Africa. The Olmec people called themselves the She people. But who they refer to the Olmecs as? Indians. Y'all see that? Y'all see that? So regardless if they came from Asia or Africa, these are fucking Indians. Debate me. When the shit is right in your face. It's in your face. Matter of fact, the name of this lecture should be In Your Face.
So as far as changing the nationality, in that case, what would be the best solution?
Documentation, affidavits. Remember, affidavits or express. Matter of fact, let's go to that right quick. Affidavits or an expression. Let's come down. And you understand the science of affidavits, because that is the most important aspect of this as you come into knowledge of self. All right, so let's look at it. Right, so I'm going to show you that. Let me finish this portion up right quick. Article 35, indigenous people have the right to determine the responsibilities of individuals to their communities. So that means you're just not going to come into, once you declare your nationality, you come into a community or nation and just be rogue. And that's what many people believe, that now, I came in as watchdog, but then only time they reach out to you is when they get in fucking trouble. They get hemmed up, get a court situation going on. I got my children taken from me. Now they ain't been on one conference call, but they want to reach out to you after they get in trouble. They claim that I did attempted murder, or they claim that I did a robbery, blah, blah, we ain't heard from you in damn 3 years, nigga. But this is what happens. You don't want to have the responsibility coming into a community or a nation. They want to be rogue. Article 37, indigenous people have the right to the recognition, observance, and enforcement of treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements concluded with the state. That means your nationality documents or their successors, and to have states honor and respect such treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements. This is why we put it on the public record, because it's concluded with the state or with their successors, showing and bearing witness that we are indigenous, that we are more, that we are land. Hell, when you die, that's what you go back to, is fucking land. Ashes to ashes and dust to dust, niggas. That's where the body goes to. So why not use it in a proper way when it already ties you back to land? Why does it have to happen only when your ass die and they put the goddamn tombstone over your shit in all caps, showing that you was a fucking artificial entity, civilis mortus? So now not only were you dead in law, now your ass is actually dead and your name is in caps at the graveyard. That's the only place that we find your name at, besides for all the other instruments that they have your name on while you're living, is permanently is when you dead on the tombstone. Your name is in all caps then. There ain't no goddamn up in lowercase, because you have deceased. So while you living, fight to be alive. Up in lowercase, a living, breathing, sentient being, flesh and blood, tied to the land, heritage. Not Negro, black, and colored, a dummy. Defined by Black's Law Dictionary. It's right in here. Look up dummy. You big dummy. Right up in here. You know that's what Red Fox always, Sanford Son used to tell Lamont. You big dummy. So let's look up dummy right quick. Here it is. Let's read that definition of dummy. Right here. There it is. You can see it. Bam. There it is. So let's look at it. One who holds legal title for another, a straw man. So a straw man is the same as a dummy. And when your name is in all caps, that's the straw man. So they are literally saying that you are a dummy. And then they tell you that you're civil and small too. It's dead in the eyes of the law. So not only are you a dummy, you're dead because it's an artificial entity. You're an artificial entity according to this, an artificial person. So not just a straw man, an artificial person, a dummy, all of that shit is the same thing. And what is that? A sham, make believe, pretended, imitation. Wonder why they damn go around and police brutality, or they can shoot us 50 times like they did Sean Bell. You know he got shot 50 times, Sean Bell? 50 times, y'all, by the New York police. That's why, because we a sham, make-believe, pretended, imitation, as respected for predicating liability on partner corporations for acts of subsidiary, agency, adduct, branch, instrumentality, dummy, buffer, and tool all means very much the same thing. So when white folks were saying, you a tool, Billy, that's a dummy. They ain't no different than Red Fox saying, you big dummy. Same shit. Artificial person. Look that shit up. And remember, this is in law. So remember, this is what they go by. They go by law. Law, history. If you have history and you don't know law, then you don't know history. You think you have pretended history. You have reconstructed history. You don't have real law, real history, because real history is part of law, part of real law. All right? So don't have anybody to tell you some of that nonsense that, well, we don't have to go by their law. No, we don't have to. But what you got to replace it with? We ain't even get to that level yet. Replacing the shit that they have given us. This is why we study our own language in this class, so that we are formulating our own dictionary, our own encyclopedia. This is why you go to the website, shit, I got books on history on there already. You can read them. Those are basically books. 40, 50, 60, 70 pages on that one page. If I took it off, that's shit. Some of the times that shit would equal up to damn 150, 200 pages of information. Those are books. When you go and see the official history of the United Washington D. Demunya, when you go to the Moorish Science Temple, or Moorish Holy Temple of Science of the World page, when you go to ICROM, the Indigenous Cosmic Golden Ray Order Melchizedek page, those are books. Indigenous people have the right to access to and prompt decision through just and fair procedures for the resolution of conflict and disputes with states or other parties. So when they talk about the assistant DA or DA claiming to be the state, claiming to be the people, but yet is a lawyer, or attorney, or esquire, goddamn, that's a lot of roles for this one motherfucker. You got a lot of roles. And then he's going against you, and you ain't nothing but to defend it. That's your title. So all these accolades that he has on his side, because he representing the people, he representing the state, is he really? Because guess what? The state, the people, according to the laws of evidence, when you get into the evidence, the rules of evidence, it specifically states that according to the rules that it must be eyewitness account. Is the state, is the party of the people, is the people that he's allegedly representing, the state that he representing, did they ever see any eyewitness account of anything in which that was done? The answer is no. So when the officer get on the stand, you ask him that question: was there anyone there besides for yourself and myself, in which that this was written up, in which that you have this suit written up against me? Was there anyone else here in this courtroom that was there that night or that day? He would have to say no, because he himself didn't witness it. He came after the fact. But you get him to disqualify the goddamn assistant DA or DA who's claiming to represent the people, who represent the state. We've done it before. My wife and I done it before, and we fucked them up. They didn't have an answer for that. We asked them, sir, officer, yes, was there anyone else in the car with us that night whenever you gave me this ticket, this suit? No, it was only you and I. Your Honor, according to the rules of evidence, it states that there must be an eyewitness account. The DA, assistant attorney, who's posing as the state, who's posing as the people, was not there that night. So therefore, we have to disqualify him or her since they was not there that night, because anything in which that she would say that comes out of her mouth is hearsay. This shit is hearsay. Because she wasn't there, eyewitness to the count. The people wasn't eyewitness to the count. The state was not an eyewitness to the count. You get it? This is how you disqualify them in a courtroom. Easy. Easy peasy, as we used to say as kids. Oh, that shit is easy peasy, son. That's how you do it. They weren't there. And I'll give you some more tricks of the trade, but that's number one. Besides for once again, Drescott case, I gave you two, the most predominant ones on which that wins in any court case. I don't care what it is. Number one is prove jurisdiction by stating that I'm a U.S. citizen, that you have any jurisdiction over me, Judge, before we even get into the judicial ruling or judicial levels of anything, the jurisprudence. There's no need to get to there to go into the court case when you can't even prove that I'm a citizen of the United States. They will ask you, well, where do you live? I live in my body. That's what you would say. Where you live? I live in my body. He's trying to get you to say that you live at 2839 South Garnett Street or some shit like that. No, you don't live there. You live in your body. Because when you leave your house don't die, do it? But if you leave your body, that motherfucker dies. If the cord is cut. So you live in your body. You don't live in a house. You don't live in a car. You live in your body. Remember, the body is the temple of God. 1 Corinthians 3:16. See, niggas always damn quoting you John 3:16. For he gave his only begotten son, that whoever shall believe in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. They love that shit. But nigga, let's go to 1 Corinthians 3:16. It says, do you not know that your body is the temple of God? You don't want to read that one. So, just and fair procedures for the resolution of conflict and dispute with states or other parties, as well as the effective remedies for all infringements of their individual and collective rights. Such a decision shall give due consideration to the customs, traditions, rules, and legal systems of the indigenous peoples concerning international human law or human rights. So, legal systems, that means you have a right to form your own court systems. You have the right for your own court system. They can't stop you from forming your own court system. You're doing a corporation, nonprofit, $60 at the Secretary of State. You put it on the public record, your court system, the name of your court. Nothing is a 501c3 that we do. Everything is a 508. Everything is a 508. How you think that the papal state slash, now remember, the papal state, the Vatican, right? Catholicism. Now, that is within Rome, which is the city, right? Which is within Italy, which is the country. But yet, the Vatican itself is the papal state. How the fuck can a state be in a city? Is it cities and states? Right or wrong? See, this is technology that they have used on us. Article 15. Everyone has the right to a nationality. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality nor denied the right to change his nationality. So technically, we ain't really changing our nationality because we didn't realize that Negro, Black, and Colored wasn't a nationality to begin with. But now that we do know, then it should show. Since the United States is in a United Nations Council member, then this treaty, Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, these declarations on the rights of indigenous people, all of this is international law, and it correlates to the Article 6 of the Constitution, where it states that the treaties are the supreme law of the lands. It also supersedes the Dred Scott case decision. So since the 14th Amendment was never fully ratified and we're not U.S. citizens, nor would we ever be based on the Dred Scott case decision, then we have the right to what? Everyone has the right to a nationality. So we have the right to have a nationality. Like I said, Koreans were from Korea 100 years ago. Everybody was from somewhere. Everybody had an indigenous, a native connection, I should say. So right here, Executive Order 11490 states, which is also known as the Rex 84 Plan, also known as the King Alfred Plan. That came about October the 19th, 1969. Right, exactly 5 months after my birth. And it says right here, concentration camps, executive orders, top secret silent weapons for quiet wars, introductory manual, operations research, technical manual, TMSWF 7905.1. So this is what's going on right now with this COVID-19 shit. All right. When this shit kicked off, they were showing you what those remember Alex Jones showed containers but looked like coffins that was off near the railway the track, the near the track, and a system there in Georgia. He showed this. So now we know what those was for. Because they just did. I mean, when they told us to stay in the house last year, when they told us there was curfews, all that shit is part of. They didn't use the term martial law, but all that shit was fucking martial law. So this is the preliminary memo, Department of Defense. This memo is being submitted in lieu of a full report from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That report is now in preparation. There would be many cities where the minorities, this is talking about us, minorities. Let's look up the term minority in the Black's Law Dictionary. Let's look that up right quick. Minority. Minority, yes. Okay, here we go. Minority. A minor. Yes. Because a minority, the first portion of that, which is the prefix, actually is minor. So here go the word minor right here for minority. Let's read it. An infant or person who is under the age of legal competency. One under 21, a term derived from, so I'm over 21, but yet they still refer to us as minorities. Most of you on this line is over 21, but they still refer to us as minorities. So here, a term derived from civil law, which describes a person under a certain age, at least then so many years. All right. So, unless it's considered a lower or person of inferior condition. Woo, there it is. A minor. Someone who have an infantile mind, who's an infant, and who is less, who is lower, a person of inferior condition. Wow. There will be many cities where the minorities will be able to put into the streets a superior number of people. So all of a sudden we become superior when we get ready to whoop that ass. Superior number of people with a desperate and dangerous will. He will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound to the continent by heritage. Hold on. They refer to us as minorities. I just showed you the definition of a minor, which is the first part of minority. Then he says that we bound to the continent by heritage. How can we be bound to this continent by heritage if we are Africans? Wow. Let's look up heritage. That's another scenario right there that we got to contend with. Okay, so all right, heritage, which is defined here as hereditament. It says things capable of being inherited, be it corporal or incorporeal, real, personal, or mixed, and including not only lands and everything thereon. So it says that we are what? Bound to this continent by heritage. And it says here, lands and everything thereon, but also heirlooms and certain furnitures, which by custom may descend to the heir together with the land. So heritage means land rights. And here it is. It says he is bound to the continent by heritage. You're bound to this continent by land rights. You're bound to this continent by even what they're on. And know that the political asylum will not be available to him in other countries. The greatest concentration of the minorities is in the deep south, the eastern seaboard, the Great Lake region, and the West Coast. This is all where niggas at. See, we don't like living in places like Idaho or Idaho. In other words, we got the ass surrounded. Because God damn it, that's surrounded. Is it not? The South, the East Coast, the Great Lakes region, and the West Coast. We got them surrounded. If they ever damn wanted to fight, we got the advantage because we got them surrounded. Oh shit, man. They be telling on themselves so bad. God damn. Ooh, man. This is so much of a joke. The last part is I'm going to get into. Let me come on down here. As you see, we got a lot that I can go over. This is the last part. The maxims of law, as I talked about. Matter of fact, let me come up right quick. Here we go. This is the tricks if they try to play with you. Where do you live? I live in my body. Do you live in the state of Michigan? I domicile in North America, Michigan Republic Territory. Do you live in the city of Detroit? I live in North America, Michigan Republic Territory. Do you live at this address? This is a mailing location. In other words, a temporary mailing location that I sometimes use, that I may sometimes use. I would say that this is a temporary mailing location, as I have the right to move anywhere in any of the so-called 50 states. And you and no one else can tell me that I cannot do so, Your Honor. So, notice to the county clerk, the minute the clerk receives any affidavit, it's supposed to be recorded. Should you receive, or excuse me, if you should refuse to record my affidavits, once deposited with you, you are committing a crime against justice under the statutes at large, section 5403, and it is punishable up to $2,000 fine and 3 years imprisonment. So if they don't file your documentation, this is what you can break out. It's the statute at large, section 5403, punishable by a $2,000 fine and a 3-year imprisonment. You think they're gonna get their ass to start damn sealing and filing your documentation in? Yes. Yeah, they definitely gonna not gonna do it then. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that's what they're gonna do. Yeah, so you have to go. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, because if they don't see you, then they're gonna deny it. This is what they've been doing this whole COVID thing. Yeah. So if your county attorney, right. And what is the Great Reset plan? To go to a cashless society and to have every human being / android, because that's what they're going to be turned into, because this is what the COVID-19 vaccine is for, is to have everyone as listed as property. So if you're a United States citizen, Negro, Black, and colored, then you're property, and therefore they put their property numbering system into you, which is called the COVID-19 vaccine. All right? I mean, this is just what it is. There are scientists right now that have said that they have seen the COVID-19 vaccine. Matter of fact, let's look it up. Number system. Vaccine and tracking. Remember, they was doing it with the phone, so they know that the vaccine shit, all this shit is able to track. It's all about that. Let me put in another magic word. Here we go. Right here in the New York Times, it says the coronavirus vaccine tracker. All right. And this correlates to the fact of Bill Gates, as we said last year when I did a video with Brother Panic. We showed that that it was patterned, that the coronavirus is patterned. All right. This is what they're claiming that is not, but it really is what it is. COVID-19 vaccines are not called luciferase. All right. And of course, they're not called that, but right here, claim COVID-19 vaccines are called luciferase, have the patent number 060606, in other words, 666, which comes from a digital program called Inferno, right? So they're saying that it's false, but actually from everything which that we studied, it's true. But of course, the AB, which is the American press, have to put out something otherwise. So it says here, this is the assessment. False. COVID-19 vaccines were not named luciferase, nor do they contain an enzyme known as luciferase. Instead, the light-producing enzyme has been used in some COVID-19 research. Hold up. See, they just lied. Because what is this light-producing enzyme? It's fucking luciferase. Oh, I'll show you. Let's see. This is what happens. These devils, man, they slick as a motherfucker with their language. So that's why you got to be stuck on your shit. Light. Here it is. Light equals lucifer. Yeah. Here it is. Luciferase is what? A light producing enzymes. But we just read right here, nor do they contain an enzyme known as luciferase. Instead, that light-producing enzyme has been used in some, Instead, that light-producing enzyme has been used in some COVID-19 research. So luciferase has been used, but that's not what they call it. They don't call COVID-19 vaccine name luciferase. The patent application and digital program mentioned in the viral reports or posts are not related to COVID-19 vaccines. That's true. It's related to the corona vaccine, the coronavirus vaccine, which is COVID-19 vaccine. See, this is how you remove all this bullshit that they do. So, if you are supposed to be an agent of light, a true light being, you yourself can light up. Why do you need luciferase, which is a light-producing enzyme, which they cloned? All right, there it is. 2 types of luciferase genes cloned from bacteria. That's what they put inside of you. Cloned from bacteria. So luciferase genes is cloned from bacteria. See, this is how you eliminate all the bullshit that they do. These are devils, yo. But anyway, this is why you need the importance of putting your nationality on the public record. Right here. Let's look at it. Crimes, Chapter 4, Crimes Against Justice, destroying and see public records. Section 5403. Every person who willfully destroys or attempt to destroy or with intent to steal or destroy, takes or carry away any record, paper, or proceeding of a court of justice, filed or deposited with any clerk or officer of such office, or any paper or document or record filed, record filed, or deposited in any public office or with any judicial or public officer shall, without reference to the value of the record, paper, document, or proceedings so taken, pay a fine of no more than $2,000 or suffer imprisonment at hard labor, not more than 3 years or both. Okay, that's the problem. All right. Also, conspiracy to defeat enforcement at law. Hold on, I still got this loud ass noise. All right, so section 5407. If 2 or more people in any state or territory conspire for the purpose of impeding, hindering, obstructing, or defeating in any manner the due course of justice in any state or territory, with intent to deny to any citizen the equal protection of the law, or to injure him or his property for lawful enforcement, or attempted to enforce the right of any person or class of persons to the equal protection of the law, each of such persons shall be punished by a fine of no less than $500, no more than $5,000, or by imprisonment with or without hard labor, not less than 6 months, no more than 6 years, or by both such fine and imprisonment. See, this is real research, y'all. You got to know how to protect yourselves. Protect your neck, as Wu-Tang Clan used to tell us, yo. Destroying records by officer in charge, 54-8. Every officer having the custody of any record, document, paper, or proceedings specified in section 5403, who fortunately takes away or withdraw or destroy any record, document, paper, or proceeding filed in his office or deposit with him or in his custody shall pay a fine of no more than $2,000 or suffer imprisonment at hard labor of no more than 3 years or both, and shall moreover forfeit his office and be forever afterwards disqualified from office, holding any office under the government of the United States. So this is why we do affidavits. All right. Commerce in everyday life is a vehicle or glue that holds or binds the corporate body politic together. More specifically, commerce consists of a mode of interacting, doing business, or resolving disputes whereby all matters are executed under oath, certified on each party. That's what it's supposed to be, not party, but party. Commercial liability by sworn affidavit, or what is intended to possess the same effect as true, correct, complete, not with misleading, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Remember, that's what they ask you when you go to court and you put your hand on that damn Bible and you raise your right hand. This affidavit is usually required for application for a driver's license, a IRS form 1040, and a voter's registration, a direct treasury account, a notary copy certification, and certifying a document, or nearly every single document that the system desires others to be bound or obligated. Such means of signing is an oath or commercial affidavit executed under the penalty of perjury, truth, correct, and complete. Whereas a court setting testimony, oral, is stated in judicial terms to be sworn to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. In addition to asserting any facts under solemn oath or affirmation, affirmed oath, or affirm of personal, commercial, financial, and legal liabilities for the validity of each and every statement, the participants may provide material evidence, ledgering or bookkeeping, providing the truth, validity, relevance, and variability of each and every particular assertion to sustain credibility. All right, commerce is antecedent to or more fundamental to society that courts and other legal systems or exist and function without respect to courts or legal system. Commercial law, the non-statutorily variety as presented below is 1 through 10 maxims, is the economic extension of natural law into man's social world and is universal in nature. The fundamental invariants, necessary and significant principles of maxims of commerce pertaining herein are: 1. There are 10 essential maxims or precepts in commercial law. Workman is worth his hire. This is the first that is expressed in Exodus. All right, Exodus 20:15, Leviticus 19:13, Matthew 10:10, Luke 10:7, 2 Timothy 2:6. It is against equity for freemen not to have the free disposal of their own property. So they have already deprived us of our own property, and they have made us tenants on our own land by forcing us to have a warrant deed, a quit claim deed, or some other thing like that. But these are deeds in which that have you as a tenant on the land, because you have to go now, if you want to put a house or modular home or a trailer on your land, you have to go to who? The land of records in the city. All right, you have to go to the ones who do the meets and bounds and who does the acreage numbering. You have to go to them in order to find out if you can put your house, your home on your own land, because you're a tenant, and this is how they treat you. The second maxim is equality before the law, or more precisely, all equal under the law. What's that? God's law, moral law, and natural law. Exodus 21, 23 to 25, Leviticus 24, 17, 21, Deuteronomy 1, 17, 19, 20, Matthew 22, 36, 40, Luke 10, 17, Colossians 3, 25. No one is above the law. And that's real law, y'all. And that's talking about above natural law and talking about God's law. No one is above the law. Not statute, codes, rules, regulations, ordinances, and policies. That shit is not law. So they got 2 million laws. I know I said the other night 200 million, but shit, might as well be. Ain't nobody reading that shit. But 2 million laws on the records when there's only 7 articles in the Constitution. For everyone to say or act as though he is above the law is insane. This is the major insanity in the world today. This is why they make the Moors look crazy as hell, because the Moors saying that we're not going by statute, codes, rules, regulations, and ordinances and policies. We're going by the Constitution. Since they trying to destroy the Constitution in order to bring about this fucking damn reset, why would they want you to use the Constitution? They would make you look like you crazy. Man continues to live, act, believe, and form systems, organizations, governments, laws, and processes which presumes to be able to supersede and obligate natural and moral law. But under commercial law, natural and moral law are binding on everyone, and no one can escape it. Commerce by the law of nations ought to be common and not to be converted into a monopoly and the private gain of the few. Well, we have seen that. That's exactly what has happened. 3, this is one of the most comforting maxims one can have, and your foundation for your peace of mind and security and your capacity to win and triumph to get your remedy in this business. In commerce, truth is sovereign. Now remember this, truth is sovereign. All right? Exodus 20:16, Psalms 117:2, John 8:32, Corinthians 13:8. Truth is sovereign, and the sovereign tells only the truth. Your word is your bond. If truth were not sovereign in commerce, i.e., all human actions and interrelations, there would be no basis for anything, no basis for law and order, no basis. No accountability, there would be no standards, no capacity to resolve anything. It would mean anything goes. Each man for himself, and nothing matters. That's worse than the law of the jungle. All right? Matter of fact, yeah, that's worse. Commerce. To lie is to go against the mind. The Oriental proverbs of all that is good, sublimity is supreme. So, commerce, truth is sovereign. So what you write in commerce, that's true. It says truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit. There it is. Truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit. So whenever Negroes tell you, I've heard Moors over the last 10, 15 years and more tell you that you don't need no paperwork, that you don't need to write no affidavit, you don't need to write no notice, you don't need to give them anything. And then when these niggas go to court without any documentation or any affidavit or notice, they get their ass put in jail. Simple. The judge can't rule on an affidavit, so why not write one? He can only state yay or nay on a motion. He can deny a motion, but your affidavit is your truth. And it's truth that is expressed in the form of an affidavit. Leviticus 5:4-5, Leviticus 6:3-5, Leviticus 19:11-13, Numbers 32, Matthew 5:33, James 5:12. An affidavit is a solemn expression of your truth. In commerce, an affidavit must be accommodated and must underlay and form the foundation for any commercial transaction whatsoever. If you think that your ass is going to court and there's no fucking damn commercial transaction going on, you crazy. Because the first thing the motherfucker's going to ask you is, do you understand the charges being brought up against you? What the fuck is a charge? Pull out your goddamn credit card. Matter of fact, give me your credit card and I go and charge that bitch. That's a commercial transaction. Overstand? So when he asks you, do you understand the charges being brought up against you? That's what he's telling you. Are you going to be available for this bill container? This bill? Because is that what they call it? They call it the bill of attainder, a bill. Well, who the fuck is going to pay the bill? The motherfucker who charged it. You get it? There can be no valid Vita commercial transaction without someone putting their neck on the line and states this is the truth, correct, complete, and not meant to mislead. When you issue an affidavit, it is a two-edged sword. It cuts both ways. Someone has to take responsibility for saying that this shit is real. It can be called a true bill. That's what they call it, or bill obtainer. And they say in the grand jury, like I said, who's going to pay for that bill? The motherfucker who charged it. That's why they ask you, do you understand the charge has been brought against you? And you're a dumbass, you'll do that. Mm-hmm. You don't understand. That's what they did to Dr. York, seen his ass, head bopping up and down. Mm-hmm. And no disrespect, but that's what happened. This is what they did. When you issue an affidavit in commerce, you get the power of the affidavit. You also incur the liability because this has to be a situation where other people may be overtly affected by it. Things change by your affidavit, in which are going to affect people's lives. If what you say in the affidavit is not true, is in fact not true, those who are adversely affected can come back at you with justifiable recourse because you lied. You perjure yourself. You have told a lie, and if it was true, people depend on your affidavit, and then they have lost because you've lied. So truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit in commerce. That is the sovereign, is your truth. That's what makes you sovereign, is your truth. And an unrebutted affidavit stands as truth in commerce. So if the DA, the assistant DA, who's posing as the fucking people, who's posing as the fucking state, who's a goddamn lawyer or attorney or esquire, whatever the fuck he want to call himself next, if there's an unrebutted affidavit that they have not rebutted, then claims made in your affidavit, if not rebutted, emerges as the truth of the matter. He who does deny admits. You get it?
I have a question.
Yes. Yes.
So you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Right. I
I
would.
didn't write that.
Right, I would. Because they understand the 10 maxims of law. These are the 10 maxims of law. And they understand it. You want to cover all your bases, dot all your I's, cross all your T's. Right. Get all your ducks in a row. However, whatever saying that we want to use, that's what needs to be applied when it comes to this. Because an unrebutted affidavit, check this out, an unrebutted affidavit becomes the judgment in the commerce. It becomes judgment in commerce. So that means if the DA or assistant attorney does not rebut your affidavit, then the goddamn court case is over. Hebrews 6:16-7. There is nothing left to resolve. Your Honor, excuse me, but there's nothing left to be resolved. This case is dismissed. She did not rebut my affidavit. You don't see a rebuttal to my affidavit. My affidavit been on record for the last 5 months, and they had enough time to rebut the affidavit, and there is no rebuttal to the affidavit. This court case is over. This is how we got to start replying to them, yo, because they're getting away with shit that they're not supposed to get away with. There's nothing left to resolve. Any proceeding in a court or tribunal or arbitration form consists of a contest or a duel of commercial affidavits, wherein the points remaining unrebutted in the end stands as truth and matter to which the judgment of the law is applied.
So what if they just ignore?
Then that's the same thing. That's the same thing. That's the same thing. In court, Your Honor, excuse me. Yeah. The judge is going to ask you, do you have anything to say on your behalf? Yes, Your Honor, I do. The assistant DA did not rebut my affidavit. Therefore, this court case should be dismissed. This court case is dismissed because there was no rebuttal to the affidavit that I put in. Therefore, this is the ruling of the judgment, not your ruling, Your Honor, but the ruling of the affidavit. Because this is a duel or contest of commercial affidavits where the points remaining unrebutted in the end stands as truth. And if they don't rebut your affidavit, then it stands as truth. Simple as that. Because no one is a mind reader. You have to put your position out there. You have to state what the issue is and to have someone to talk about and resolve. So he who fails to assert his right has none. So in commercial, for any matter to be resolved, it must be expressed. And the expression is in the form of an affidavit. And that form of affidavit is what makes you sovereign. So by them not reflecting on anything which that you state, then you sovereign. And a sovereign can't be sued in their own court of law. Those are the laws I went over the other night on the video. A sovereign can't be sued in the Yes, you can do that. You would have to go to the secretary, which is actually the clerk of courts, and you would have to tell them that you're indigent, which means that you don't have no money to pay for it, because otherwise they'll charge you $250 to open up a court case. But you tell them that you're indigent and you need an indigent form. You fill out the indigent form 00000. I'll make shit, basically. And you give it back to them, and they open up the court case, and you tell them what the court case matter is about, and it's going to be on the civil side, because now it becomes a civil matter. That's where your remedy is on the civil side, not on the criminal. That's why it's a different court. So this now becomes a civil matter. Yes.
Is there specific amount of days that you would list in regards to how many days they have to provide?
You can say 10 days, 5 days, 10 days, 20, 30 days. Right. But it wouldn't be no more than 30 days. So 5 to 30 days is normally what you give them, 5 to 30 days. Really, there's only 3 days in lending, 72 hours, if you want to know the truth of the matter. Right. So 3 days is the least amount of time. Normally they give 5, but no more than 30. Okay. All right. All right, y'all. That's all I got for today. Every Sunday we up in this piece. So, I'm gonna say hi to watch to each to everyone. Hey, watch to each. All right. No problem. Yeah, watch to each. Oh, you're welcome. Appreciate y'all coming.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Welcome. Gratitude. Thank you.
Goodbye.
All right, y'all. Y'all see that I have so much information, but I wanted y'all to get as much of this information down that is possible. We're glad that y'all able to check that out. All right. I'm reading the comments over here. Miss Candace is back up in the house. Appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. Brother Jeffrey Bay, thanks you. Thank you. Welcome. Massive God Squad say, I love you, my good brother, Dr. Alim. Appreciate you, God. Thank you, God. Yusef El-Bey. Oh, yeah, that's the guy right there. Be on the YouTube. Appreciate you, God. Highly appreciate Baba Alim. All right. Thank you. And family. All right. So hopefully y'all got something from this presentation tonight. Of course, as usual, follow me on Patreon. I'm on Patreon, so please follow me there. If you really appreciate the information that I'm teaching, because nobody else is teaching you this information like this. If they have all fallen off or whatever the case is. I don't know what the hell is going on, but I know where I need to be at and what I need to be teaching. I teach, as you know, everything from metaphysics, alchemy, occult sciences, esoteric teachings, metaphysics to health, I teach every fucking thing that you can think of, because this is everything that we need as a nation here and now. We don't have a culture, so we are developing a culture in the process, a culture, a real culture, in which that we can utilize in order to get us back into position as we once did as Moors. In other words, rulership. Because right now our rulership has been taken from us and we are in an inferior position. And I don't like the fucking position that we in. Case closed. All right, we out, y'all. Peace.